Gimel, last paragraph on the page, concerning the Zohar Sharoslucha Amolik, explaining that Amolik, though he understands which in a person could mean that even though he understands the greatness of Elikus, and he is, even though he was misboinen and so on, still in all, despite that, he doesn't have the inspiration. Why? Because Amalek comes and knocks it down and says, nothing to get excited about. We say, just like in Eretz Yisrael, before there could be the destruction of Amalek, there had to be the king. You had to appoint a king, and then you had the mitzvah of destroying Amalek. The same thing when it comes to our personal Amalek. So the advice is that a person needs to appoint in himself a king, that he should have, even though he's a neshama in the body, still in all, and he's dealing with the 248 limbs, and he's dealing with thought, speech, and deed, he should have the king ruling over his small city in a way of a gzeira, in a way that the king decrees and says, this is the law, no arguments. When you're dealing with the 7 nations, since the 7 nations have to do with intellect, and you could convince them intellectually to turn over their love for Klippa to love for Kedusha, etc. But Amalek, since he's not open to intellectual understanding, you cannot go ahead and make that type of transition and make that type of change and to just try to convince him, because he understands Yedeas Rebbein. So therefore, the only way to overcome it is in the way of a king. A king, the way Malchus is, like he said, Bisnasus Atzmis, in the essential state, shines down here below in the neshama, the body, and decrees and says, this is it. Not taking any guff from Amal. So now he continues and explains this is the idea of remembering about Amalek for all times. Line 17, page Yud Gimel. This is also where it says, remember what Amalek did to you. I know this means it's insufficient to just study the Milchemes Amalek, to learn about it. But there has to be an idea of remembering. Zocher, like it says, remember what Amalek did. Dafka, specifically the idea of memory. What does memory indicate? What is the simple idea of memory? Is to remove something from the changes that time affects. I know this means though normally a person can forget something that is old, something that happened a while ago. For this is a command, remember, that this matter of the remembering of Amalek should be in a way of without change, beyond any idea of measure and boundary in time, and therefore, since time is bound up in place, it's also beyond place. What does it mean that it's beyond time? Change that can it's not like some idea, his bonus, meditation and comprehension. Because through meditation, through intellect, we said we cannot influence Amalek because he knows already his master, like we mentioned before. That through the level of intellect increases over time. Intellect is under the limitations and the improvements and also the lessening of time. Because, like it says, that much years will add in wisdom, like was mentioned earlier in the Mimer. In other words, the more a person lives, the more they have understanding and appreciation of something, and they grow in it. That's the manner of intellect. That's the way intellect works. That intellect increases, and it's something that goes on, and so on. But in a similar vein, we see that intellect is subject to change. And if it's subject to change, there's also the idea that after a while, changes will take place, and he'll be weakened in his intellect, and he won't have the same powerful type of attitude towards Amalek like he had before. So we say Zachar as just Amalek. Memory means it doesn't make a difference that happened 50 years ago or 5,000 years ago. Memory means I'm always on this picture, always with the program of it. This is something that time has no control over. Because beyond meditation, beyond ideas, only by dealing in such a manner that is beyond the limitations of time, then can one overcome Amalek, because he's beyond those type of limitations, beyond those type of hagbolas. That's the idea of zechira. That's the idea of memory. That the memory should be in such a way that he's not limited at all by the time pass, meaning no limitations, full power to constrain and to deal with Amal. Top of page Yuzdal. This level with which one can overcome the idea of the head of the goyim. The beginning of the goyim is Amalek, like we said before. The beginning means higher than them, meaning deeper and worse than them. The reishis the kedusha, to counter the reishis of klippa, the first, the beginning, the start, the makif of klippa. You have to attack with the makif of kedusha. That's the level in the soul known as chaya yichida, as opposed to nefesh, ruach, neshama, which is clothed in the person and so on. That's why in Parshas B'Shalach, Hashem says, I will surely erase and eradicate any memory of Amalek. It's a war of Avaya in Amalek. Even before it says that you need to eradicate and erase any memory of Amalek, it says that's Hashem's battle. What does it mean, Hashem's battle? It's talking about the level of the neshama that is connected to Hashem, the reishis of Kedusha. Because the war against Amalek is not through the part of the neshama that's enclosed in the body. Because this is the avoid of every single person, like we said before, to deal with the midos. Is the avoid of every single person. The midas is the level of the neshama that's enclosed in the body. Rather, how does one fight the war against Amalek? It's through the part of the neshama of chaya and yechida. How come? What is unique about yechida that's able to take on Amalek? Since it is a vessel, a receptacle to the only one, to the singular one of the world. Hashem is called Yachid. The highest level of our neshama is called Yechida, in the feminine of the word Yachid, meaning it is receiving from, it is connected to, it is joined with Yechida Shalaylam. That is the power from which we get to be able to fight Amalek. That's why it's called Hashem's fight, though we're doing the fight, because it's only by the power of Hashem within us, the reishis of Kedusha, that constancy, that unalterable, unchanging aspect of the Eibishter that's within us, the Yechidush of a Nefesh, that's able to counter Amalek. This is the war of Avaya against Amalek. I knew this is referring to Avaya Sheb'chol Echad B'Yisrael. It's referring to the Avaya in every single Yid. Nitzitz Boydei, a spark of the Creator, Shemislavish B'Nitzitz Nivra, that's enclosed in the spark of the created being. That is the only one the singular one in the soul, meaning the essence of the neshama. So since it's enclosed, Hashem's being is enclosed in the yichida of our soul, so that's why it's possible for us to be able to counter Amalek with that. By days of Poel Acharkach, through that we affect after that you will erase any memory of Amalek. Second paragraph. Omnam. Im Yeshis Gabras al Reishis Goim Amalek Yaide Bechinas Reishis the Kedusha Bechinas Chayiv Yechidadaf, though the overpowering of Amalek is through the level of the beginning, the top level of Kedusha. Specifically, Chaya Yechida is what enables that overpowering to take place. The Kol Mokim still in all. We need to connect this level with the part of the neshama that's enclosed in the body. Even she's do hamani, since the part of the neshama that's actually enclosed in the body, not the Chayichid, is the one that actually runs the war because it actually engages with the body, with the world, with the Nefesh and so on. So now you can explain about that meshing of the two. You've been before Baruch Bedrushi Purim Tablet Pei. We understood by first prefacing what's explained at length in the Mamorim of Purim of the year Tafresh Pei, in other words, of the Rebbe Rashab, 1920, last few weeks of his life. So he spoke. One of the means through which one can overpower and overcome Amalek, why the Akriya of the Parsha Zocher b'Torah, the actual reading of Parsha Zocher in the Torah, is what battles and defeats Amalek. What is it about reading Parsha Zocher? And first of all, he says, Inyan Hakriya b'Torah sheb'Ksavda. It's specifically the idea of reading in the written Torah, Torah sheb'Ksav, that is enabling us to, or actually helps us overcome Amalek. In a Yesh Inyan b'Torah, there are two aspects of Torah. Yesh b'Torah Inyan Shalabon of Asag page as well. There's the idea of Torah that is understanding and comprehension. Primarily, the understanding part of Torah, the logic part of Torah, is in the oral Torah. Yes, but there's also the idea of reading, which transcends understanding, not about understanding, in the written Torah. You do have something like it's known the ruling. Also someone that doesn't know what he is saying. In other words, he doesn't understand the meaning of the words. When he reads in the Torah, he makes a bracha prior to it. When he gets an aliyah, he makes a bracha after he gets the aliyah. But we don't find that by Torah Shabbat Peh. If a person reads Mishnayos or reads Gemara or reads any other part of Torah and he has no idea what he is saying, so then he's not fulfilling the mitzvah of Talmud Torah, and therefore he doesn't make the bracha of Birchas HaTorah. What do we see from that? That the written Torah is not about logic, it's not about understanding. So we have the logical part of Torah, that's the oral Torah, Torah Sheba'al Peh. We have the super rational part of Torah, it's Torah Sheb'Ksav, it's the written Torah. So in Kriyas Parsha Zocher, that's the idea of the reading of Parsha Zocher. That according to many opinions, until it's actually brought down as a ruling of Shulchan, this is a mitzvah aseh minat Torah. It's a positive command to read Parsha Zocher from the Torah that we fulfill on the Shabbos before Purim. This remember that we read Parsha Zocher. The Shabbos before Purim is the preparation that when Purim comes along, we bring about a defeat of Haman. Like the words of the Gemara Masechtas Megillah that he explains over there. Why do we read Parsha Zocher before Purim? Because you should have the remembrance of the destruction of Amalek before the actual destruction of Amalek, which is Purim, is the actual destruction. Meaning that this is one prepares for the other, one enables the other. The reading of it in the Torah enables us to defeat Haman and defeat Amalek with all its illogic or counter logic, it enables us to defeat him on Purim. This defeat of Haman on Purim is Mapol's Amalek loss and love. It's similar to the defeat that Amalek will receive and happen during when Mashiach comes. Not only the level of you shall erase, which is what the human being does, but also I will erase totally. That's brought down that loss of love will be Hashem will erase Amalek, and that will be completely, totally erased. That's one thing that the Rebbe Rashab says in his Maimer, how we can affect this yichid of power to defeat Amalek, this rashis of Kedusha, to defeat the rashis goyim Amalek of Klippa. That's reading the words of Torah Shebeksav, reading Parshas Zot. Now he's going to explain another thing that counters Amalek, which is again, it's taking logic out of the picture. Since Amalek is not dealing with logic, so we have to do things not with a logic type of thing. So he says in line 11, it's also explained over there, Shabitl clips Amalek, Nasa Gamai Mitzvahs Maisius, that the nullification of the clip of Amalek comes through mitzvahs and action, putting in effort in fulfillment of mitzvahs and being careful in their fulfillment and adorning them and going beyond the letter of the law and beautifying them and so on. Moving, that's understood. So there should be able to be the reading of the Torah in actuality with speech. That Chazal say, even though speech is one thing and action is another thing, but speech is also called a minor action. And also fulfilling mitzvahs in the action in a way of beautification and so on. It involves action. So we were speaking about before that we want to join the Yechida with the Neshama in the body, thought, speech, and deed. So to do these things, to do the reading of the Torah, to do the action of the reading of the Torah, to do the mitzvahs and action, which all of these things are the tools and the means with which to defeat Amalek. So you can't just jump into action. There's a series of things that go together. It says in line 17, there's a need in thought, speech, and deed. They're connected and associated with the part of the neshama that's enclosed in the body. So now we can understand that joining of Yechida, the ratios of Kedusha, and our body. Therefore, we have to bind up the Yechida of the soul, the ratios of Kedusha, the counterbalance to the ratios of Klippa, for the levels of Nefesh and Ruach Neshama that's enclosed in the body. Now, what brings them together? How do we get from point A to point C? This happens through davening. This is accomplished through davening. Davening is a ladder standing on the ground, and its top is reaching to the heavens. What does it mean to the heavens? In the neshama itself, there's the ground of the neshama, and there's the heavens of the neshama. To bind up the foot of the neshama, meaning the level of the neshama that's enclosed in the body, with the head of the neshama, that's the level of the neshama, the way it's above, the level of Chai Yechida. Reishis, the Kedusha, in the Reishis going Amalek, this nullifies the idea of the head of the goyim, the beginning of the goyim is and let's continue. Zion, bottom of page Tes Vav. So now he's going to go back to what we were talking about the beginning of the Maimer. It says Mordechai was Ben Yoel, Ben Shimi, Ben Kish, Ish Yemini. Why we bring it in about davening? Davening. Why is davening? If you remember, we asked necessary to be able to explain how Mordechai defeated Haman. Now it's understood because davening acts as that link and joins the ratius of the neshama, the head of the neshama, with the neshama that's enclosed in the body. But before he gets to those hints, he's going to start about the two words that even precede and begin the entire pasuk, which he didn't speak about earlier. Oizain, zo ish Yehudi goyim. This is what it says. Ish Yehudi, there was a Jewish man. Shmoi Mordechai ben Yair ben Shimon Kish. His name was Mordechai, the son of Yair, the son of Shimi, the son of Kish. Behind this means Shalachoy L'Reish, first and foremost. Before mentioning Mordechai and his descriptions and so on, page design, what's the first thing that it says? Before we even hear his name, Nikra Ish Yehudi. He's called a Jewish man. Is the Gemara, like it's brought down the Gemara, the question, Amai Karele Yehudi. Why does it call him Yehudi? Literally in Tanakh, Yehudi means a person from the Shevet Yehuda. Afal Pishim Binyamin Kasi. Mordechai came from Shevet Binyamin. We say Mordechai Ben Bashir Ben Kish Ish Yemini. Yemini means he's from the Shevet Binyamin. So it's a contradiction. The beginning of the passage you say is Ish Yehudi. He's a person from Shevet Yehuda. They conclude he's from Shevet Binyamin. Mother says, true, he was from Shevet Binyamin, but he's called a Yehudi from the word being moide in Hashem. And being moide in the Torah, Shum Shekaf Avodah Zarah, the Gemara says, because he denied Avodah Zarah, Shekala Kaifer Avodah Zarah, whoever denies Avodah Zarah, Nikra Yehudi is called a Yehudi. Why is someone that's denying Avodah Zarah is called a Yehudi? Kiva Shekala Kaifer Avodah Zarah, Kilo Moide B'Chala Torah. Because whoever denies idolatry, it's as if he admits in the entire Torah. So what is this idea? How does this fit in with everything we were talking about? The concept behind this is we need to nullify the idea of Haman and Amalek that he met you on the road and he cooled you off on the road. He knows his master and he intends to rebel against him. Inyan the Ish Yehudi, there has to be the idea of an Ish Yehudi. Inyan Haida Shalamayla Mizbanas Vasagim. What is Haida means? What does admitting mean? So this always talks about admitting is something that's beyond intellect. It's not something I'm coming to it logically. It's something that I accept. So to counter a molek that doesn't work logically, again, I need to work in a way that's super rational. That is the manifestation of self-sacrifice that comes as a result of the chai yichida of the soul. And that self-sacrifice impresses and impacts also the lower parts of the neshama, not just chai yichida, but also the nefesh, ruach, and neshama could also be changed in the way they act. Ad shekol avidosim, you said the supenu yali yosef ish Yehudi, until his entire service is based on and built on being ish Yehudi shemoide b'chal Torah kula, that admits in the entire Torah. That's why that's the first thing in the pasuk. Ish Yehudi. That's the foundation. That's the basis. That impacts and influences everything else. Because if he continues in the pasuk, Mordechai, his name is Mordechai. The idea of drawing down, the idea of admitting in Hashem beyond logic. That's why it's called Ish Yehudi. The level of self-sacrifice that comes from Chai Yechida, that it should come down into the levels of Nefesh Ruach Neshama. What joins them? Davening joins them, like we said. That's what joins the Chai Yechida, which is the head of the Neshama, with the feet of the Neshama, which is Nefesh Ruach Neshama. Therefore, you need to have Mordechai. Like it's brought down in the Gemara when it tries to bring different Chumash hints for the level of Mordechai. It says the name Mordechai is hinted in Mordroir. Now, Mar is the word bitterness. It's showing on the bitterness and upset that a person has to be upset about what went wrong. that precedes davening, like the ruling of Shulchan Aruch, based on the mission. A person does not stand to daven only out of heaviness of head, meaning seriousness. That's the bitterness and upset before davening about what's been going on with his life. Once he has the level of the Mordechai, that is the introduction or the preface, or what precedes davening. There's the level of the son of Yer, the son of Shimi, the son of Kish. Shreim is holding up Tefillah and Iskolel Sif Aleph. It hints on the idea of davening, like we mentioned before, that he illuminated Eden's eyes with his davening. Hashem heard his davening. He knocked on the gates of heaven with his davening. In such a way that he rises up in all three lines, as we're going to say that these three descriptions, these three names indicates the three lines. Shazel ben Yoyer. That's the idea of illumination. Inyan ha'oida, the idea of light. Chacham is called the idea of light and sight and vision. Ben Shim, that's the right line. As we mentioned before, Chacham is on the right. Ben Shimi is the idea of Inyan Hashmiya, that's the idea of hearing, Inyan Abina, Shema, which is also hearing of understanding, that's the idea of Bina, Bina's understanding, that's on the left line. Ben Kish, the Hikish al Sharet Rachmim, Sharet Pilosh, Yikavem Tzoy, the Chazal said he was knocking on the gates of compassion, the gates of davening, that's the middle line. Middle line, we know it's compassion and mercy. So, Gamash Messiah Ishimini, this is also what he concludes. The man of Yemini, like Friedrich explains, Yemini Peruchai, the Mabit Apol Echad Mi Yisrael Ba'ayin Yamin. The Friedrich says an amazing thing. Why is it called the man of the right? That's Yemini. That he looks on every Jew with a right eye in a positive way. Zehu Inyan V'Hafalach Kamoich, top of page design. That's the idea of loving your fellow as yourself. That is a preparation, a preface before davening. Like Dr. Rebbe writes as the introduction to his Siddur, it's appropriate to say before davening, even before Matovu, you have to say, I take upon myself the mitzvah of loving my fellow as myself. So that's why Mordechai was called Ish Yemini, because what he represented, the idea of davening, had to be with looking at every Jew with the right eye. After there is the ascent of the avodah of davening in all the three lines that we mentioned before. He has to ascend the ladder of davening from the ground to the heavens, until his head reaches the heavens. So then we draw down from above the Chai Yechida down here below. That should be the battle of Havai and Amalek and the Nefesh Ruach and the Neshama. How is that so? Yes, the Torah Parshas Zohar, through the reading of the Torah Parshas Zohar, Kima mitzvahs behidr, following the mitzvahs with care and beauty. Then, once we defeat Amalek, who interrupted our entering and conquering the seven nations, this becomes now the preparation for the conquering of the good and broad land, the land of the seven nations, with the coming of Mashiach. So close in Yemei Purim. That's the general idea of these days of Purim. Every single year, Mishpacha, Medina, Ve'ir, Ve'ir, family and family, country and country, city and city. Then it occurs anew, the idea of remembering what Amalek did to you on the way going out of Mitzrayim. Behind this means when Yidden exit and go out daily from the constraints and boundaries of the opposite of Klippa, when they're even leaving the constraints and boundaries of Kedusha, like two ways how we could explain the idea of Yitzias Mitzrayim. Yitzias Mitzrayim could be going out of negative constraints, or even in Kedusha where we're limited in our Kedusha. So then we have to take care and ensure that there should not occur that he pulls you off on the way while you're going out of these boundaries and limitations. Lachas kamish like meaning is that, and how much more so do we have to ensure that there shouldn't be the result of the cooling off. We know the result of the cooling off is that he knows his master and he intends, etc. That occurs through the avoid of davening. That's the idea that they sublimate their hearts to their Father in heaven, like the Chazal said earlier. We brought down that it wasn't the hands of Moshe that affected the victory, but the Yidden looking upwards and making their hearts devoted to Hashem in heaven. By days of a Gavri Yisrael, through this, the Yidden overcame Amol. Through that becomes a state and situation that the Yidden had light and joy, happiness, and glory. Both according to the Chazal's drasha that Oira zu Torah is going on Torah, Simcha ze Yomtiv, Simcha joy that's Yomtiv, Sasan to Mila. The word Sasan is referring to the bris. The Yikar Elut film, the Yikar is going on film. Shalzen Namar concerning film that says, and all the nations of the world will see that the name of I is called upon you and they will fear you. So both the spiritual of Simcha V'Sasmikar, and then we should have the physical, also the literal light and joy and happiness and glory. So it should be for us in such a way that from one gula we go to the next gula. What is the next gula? Gula mitzvah shlem v'kar mamish, the true and complete redemption speedily. Allah Namar concerning the future redemption. It says, "May taste Kamaras Mitzrayim," and it flows like your days going out of the land of Mitzrayim. I will show you one.